Big flashy disclaimer here. I'm about to tear into Silksong about a few things, so expect some foul language and exceptionally harsh hatred. You have been warned. You know, very rarely do I rage quit at a game. However, I have to rant about the difficulty of Silksong, specifically a small few things that I find genuinely bad, genuinely unbalanced, genuinely unfun, and genuinely make me never want to play this game again. Before we begin, I do want to say that outside of these things that I'm about to mention, everything else about Silksong is great. I love it, but Team Cherry has to address these things. Let's start with the player's damage. By this point, I have 2 needle damage upgrades, yet most enemies are still taking 4 to 6 hits to kill. Like, genuinely, what the fuck? There is no reason for enemies to be taking that long to kill. Even enemies in areas that are far earlier in the game are still taking that many hits. Team Cherry, a damage upgrade is supposed to increase your damage, not keep it the same. Tools are also not a help at all, really, considering how little damage they do. Seriously, fucking saw blades don't do that much damage. Fucking saw blades. How the shit are you supposed to kill anything in this game when you do no damage at all, basically? It's like poking a bear with a stick and hoping that the bear dies. Either increase the amount of damage the player does or reduce the amount of health enemies have. It's not that hard of a fix. Now, why in fucking fresh hell does 90% of this game do 2 mask damage? I have 7 masks, and yet I'm still getting fucking nuked by a grand majority of shit in this game. Here's an example. Why the fuck does this tiny ass shrimp dick have an ass, no bitches have an ass, fly larva do 2 mask damage? A fly larva. I'm fucking convinced that a good portion of this game was just not tested from the amount of unnecessary and frankly bullshit amount of things that do 2 masked damage. Do not get me started on multi-mask damage, because that shit is more of a fucking annoyance than like depression showing up on a good day. Because honestly, multi-mask damage is just a fancy way of doing 2 mask damage. So that's exactly what it is, 2 mask damage. It's a fucking headache to see something that should not deal 2 mask damage, like these scissors for example, do 2 mask damage because of some lazy ass shitty excuse of, oh, you're playing a more fragile character, or oh, Team Cherry said it was going to be harder than Hollow Knight, or my own personal favorite excuse, you're playing a character with superior movement, so enemies have to hit harder. These are not an excuse for the sheer amount of bullshit that does 2 mask damage in this game. Reduce the amount of 2 mask damage for fuck's sake. There's no reason for it, it's just artificial difficulty. So why the fuck do most bosses in this game summon ads during the fight? For example, an ad is an extra enemy summoned by the boss while you're mid-fight. Now, I'm someone that royally fucking hates bosses that summon ads, simply because it's a lazy ass way of adding artificial difficulty, kinda like the 2 mask damage bullshit we heard about already. Add a boss that does 2 mask damage as well as summons ads that also do 2 mask damage, and you have a recipe that makes me want to commit a war crime against my controller, my desk, and my motherfucking wall. Let's not forget the significant lack of benches in this game, and you're likely to end up running back to a boss that will end you in just a few seconds over and over again because you cannot learn the boss simply because this fuckwad over here does 2 mask damage and summons ads that do 2 mask damage. Have fun! The environments are gorgeous. The music is fucking crack for my ears. The movement is smooth and engaging. However, I physically cannot enjoy Silksong for the sole purpose of the reasons that I mentioned in this video. Whenever there's an enemy that I know does 2 mass damage, I sigh out of disappointment. Whenever there's a boss that does 2 mass damage, I get upset because I can't learn the fight due to dying because the boss nukes me in just a few hits. If you combine both of these, it makes me just never want to go to that part of the game ever again and just leave it sitting there on hold forever. I want to love Silksong, but I physically cannot due to these reasons. At the end of the day, I'm human and it's just a game. A game that I looked forward to, but was disappointed due to what I mentioned in this video. It saddens me, and it saddens me even worse, knowing that Team Cherry will never walk back the difficulty of this game. Period.